Meeting of the Greenbrier County Republican Club will come to order, and by fiat, it is now 6:30. Please refrain from checking your own watches. We have Mindy, if you can do the invocation, please. We can stand.
Good and gracious God, as we begin this new calendar year, we thank you for all the past year's blessings and ask through your love and mercy that you grant us favor in health and prosperity. Please lift the burdens that lay on anyone here tonight and grant healing to those in need. Lord, give us discernment and courage to do your will for the sake of others. We pray for peace and restoration in our community, our country, and this world that you so lovingly created. Preserve us as a Christian nation. Guide us to be accepting, kind, and steadfast in keeping this country one nation under God. Set your spirit upon our local, state, and national leaders that they do what is right and good. Give them strength, courage, and wisdom to serve the people with humility and honor. We know that you, Lord, are the truth and the one true God who gives us all goodness. May we commit to being obedient to your commands and enjoy the fruits of that obedience. Thank you, Lord, for your constant forgiveness and unending love. In the honor and glory of Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Now, we have a replacement for Frank.
I pledge allegiance to
the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. We have a treasurer's report.
I do. Right now, the club is standing at $8,388.85. We have $14,725 in our scholarship account. Going back to the dinner, we sold $3,460 in tickets in the 50/50. We paid out 2 invoices to PostNet for $130.36. We paid the Dutch House for the dinner $2,631.25. So we made about $698.39 off the dinner. So we cleared that. We were worried there for a minute, because when I was doing the rough math, I'm like, oh my goodness, we're $100 short here. So we did receive 45 cents in interest from Citibank. Mr. Deeds, if I could get with you afterwards.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but that's basically it. We have nothing coming out as far as I know of. No, nothing? Okay. So that's where we're at.
Well, we're paid. Oh, good. At least we're solvent. Okay. Program this evening, I have invited State Senator Vince Deeds and Delegate Ray Canterbury to talk about the upcoming 2026 legislative agenda, the priorities that leadership has set out, and what are the prospects that some will actually get passed and some will not. So I think the legislative agenda is mainly driven by the House. Is it not? Okay, Ray, I'll let you start.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna do this in about 3 parts. I'm gonna talk about the legislature, the House agenda for the upcoming session. I'll talk about some stuff that we're gonna be dealing with locally, and then a few things that I'm just personally gonna be very interested in when we get there. First of all, in a retrospective look at the last session, the members of the House didn't think that the last session was all that productive, so we decided that we were going to take the bull by the horns, and we decided to set the agenda this time. We've got about 18 bills that we've organized and set up that we're going to run that are all basically pro-business bills. They're all designed to help us encourage more business and economic development in the state of West Virginia, which is going to be the primary focus of the House. I'm going to give you a few highlights from this. I'm not going to go through all of them because they don't all sound all that exciting. They're all important, but I'll give you a few highlights here, and I'm going to have to read this off of a small screen. We're basically, first of all, we're going to have a couple of bills to encourage the development of hangar space and the aviation industry in the state of West Virginia. Apparently, there might be some opportunities in the northern part of the state, particularly to attract some of the aviation industry here, repair, maintenance, and training, and that sort of thing. So there's some incentives to take advantage of that, plus also to build out hangar space, because apparently the aviation industry says that we lack that. There are approximately 7 to 8 airports in the state of West Virginia that could benefit from that program, including Greenbrier Valley Airport. So we could potentially benefit from that particular one. But there are 2 bills in that category. We have a proposal that's called Recharge West Virginia, which is going to reimburse businesses for some training for employees to improve their skills. We've got some ideas about helping high school students develop skills before they enter the workforce. We have some, let me see, this is this other one here. Oh yeah, there's this one here called the Construction Cost Relief Act, exempting the state, exempting construction building projects from the state tax code in certain areas where there's housing demand. So anyway, there's also a proposal on here to extend certain tax credits to small businesses. We've always heard a lot about, well, why do you extend tax credits to companies that are new to the state of West Virginia? Why don't you do something to incentivize companies that are already here to grow? So there's going to be a shift, and a lot of these are designed to encourage small business. There's one here that's rather interesting. It's something that's kind of difficult to explain. It's something called the collaboratory. Now, they did this in North Carolina. The legislature in North Carolina decided that, the legislature there, like all legislatures, has lots of studies. And they said, we need to study this, and there's no real organization to that. So what we've decided to do is establish something called the collaboratory. It'll be basically, I think, seated at Marshall. And basically, it'll be an organization that will basically take all of the research projects that the legislature requests, where we want to do studies on anything on pending legislation or economic development, and we send it to them, and then they find academics around the state in various institutions who can take up those projects, and they assign those and allocate resources. I talked to a friend of mine who worked as a project manager for DARPA for years. DARPA is called the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency at the Pentagon, and they're basically a research funding arm of the Pentagon that essentially what they do is, if the Pentagon identifies an area of technology that could be useful for national defense, they have this entire program that provides seed money and expedites that R&D to get that through the pipeline much more quickly. This is sort of like that. It's in the private sector. We're just basically looking for a way to essentially focus research and development in the state of West Virginia around the policy initiatives of the state legislature in an organized manner. This has been done in North Carolina and worked very well. So Roger Hanshaw decided it would be a good idea to try to bring that here. So those are some of the things, but mostly what we're basically focusing on is, as I said, some tax incentives for small business, upgrading training, some bills to expedite permitting for utilities infrastructure, as well as requiring the utilities to focus on affordability in their long-term planning in front of the PSC and so on. So those are the statewide issues. I think those will pass, because we have 91 members in the House. These are all basically caucus positions, so there's a fairly good chance they will all pass. I'm not sure about the Senate, although I'm fairly confident we have a chance there. At the local level, this is gonna take up a lot of our time. As most of you know, the hospital locally is going to lose their OBGYN here in a couple of years. Now, this is going to be a huge problem for the Greenbrier Valley, because small businesses are telling us that if you don't have an OBGYN, it's going to be harder to recruit young families to the state of West Virginia. You need an OBGYN. I've talked to the hospital, I've talked to the O School. When the governor is putting together his rural health initiative, he's going to get at least $100 million a year for 5 years from the federal government for this, and might get more than that. There's a part of his proposal that includes incentives for people to practice in medicine in rural parts of the state. And within that section of his proposal, I have found an area where I think we could possibly get $1 million, and maybe if we can get some, like for example, get CAMC to go along with it, to get accreditation for a rural rotation for a residency program for OBGYNs. It turns out that the lack of OBGYNs is not just a local problem, it's statewide. We have OBGYN deserts all across the state. And it's a particularly bad problem in a county that has a medical school, because if you don't have an OBGYN, then you may not be you might not be that interesting to female students who want to attend as medical students. And since this particular medical school is very important to the supply chain for doctors around the state, we have probably more placement within the state of West Virginia than any other medical school. It's kind of important that we address that here. So I'm going to try to arrange to have a meeting with our delegation and the governor early in the session. I think the governor has had some meetings about this, so I want to find out what exactly he's thinking about it, and then we can kind of work with him and come up with some kind of a plan to address that, because that's an important local issue. We've had some conversations with locally with the State Board of Education, the County Board of Education, because they're anticipating funding issues because their enrollment numbers are dropping dramatically. People are choosing homeschooling and other options, but it's the way the school funding formula works. They can sometimes get caught flat-footed from one year to the next if their enrollment drops unexpectedly. It can cause them some serious budgetary problems. So we're going to have to look into. I'm going to look into at least a study and looking how we can modify the funding formula so they don't get hit immediately on things. We've done that sort of thing with pension funding in the past, called smoothing, where we take average enrollment over a period of time rather than just year to year to give them a bit of a buffer, so they can make some adjustments for that.
The state funding formula has been basically the same for how long? Since the 40 years?
Yeah, very long time, and it's always been difficult for Greenbrier County because they basically fund positions. They fund headcount. So, for example, they fund a certain number of service personnel, and we've always been compared, like say Hancock County up north, about the same student population, but they're much smaller. So we end up having to take all of our service personnel and allocate them for driving buses, and they don't have to do that. So we have to come up with some other funding mechanism for the other funding service personnel. So it becomes a little bit challenging. So we really are gonna have to take a look at that too. Finally, on a much more the thing I'm going to go back and look at again. I mentioned this the last time I was here. The state of West Virginia actually has a significant amount of off the books debt. It's not the net taxpayer supported debt. That's a separate thing. We owe mostly within the road bonds category. We owe about $2.25 billion roughly in taxpayer supported debt. But we have a number of categories of debt that are basically issued by things like the Economic Development Agency. There's a hospital building authority and so on. And these agencies, in aggregate, have accumulated about $12 billion or so in debt.
Wow.
It's not taxpayer supported because apparently it's supported by other projects. But I don't know if there's any guarantee that, because they're considered to be moral obligations of the state. So I'm wondering if the entities that are supporting those debts become unable to support those debts, do we then as taxpayers get saddled with those? And there's simply no central control on the growth of this debt. And I've had discussions with our state treasurer about that. So we need to basically put some mechanism in place to get a handle and stop the growth of that debt. I mean, our universities owe probably $1 billion in aggregate that they've accumulated. WVU being probably the largest borrower. And again, the question is, I mean, those institutions have their own revenue streams, and I'm sure that's why they call it not net taxpayer supported. But if something happens to the revenue streams for those institutions and it's our moral obligation, then does that come back to us? And if it does, then we need to be very concerned about it, and we need to put some hard caps on that, and we need to take control of that and limit the growth of that debt in the long run. So that's an issue that I think we need to be concerned about, especially since we have an aging population, declining population. That's not a circumstance you want to be in when you're borrowing a lot of money in the long run. And what happens if there is a national economic downturn, which could happen. We're doing okay now, but you never know what the future holds. So it seems to me that we need to kind of get a handle on that so we can put a buffer in place to deal with it.
How many of your colleagues in the House share that concern?
They
How
don't know about
likely is that to be?
I found out a lot of them don't even know about it.
Yeah.
That's the scary part. I mean, I've mentioned this, and they look at me and say, "I didn't know That's the reaction. So part of it is making sure that, you know, there's an old saying, what gets measured gets done. So the first thing is to start making sure that everyone's aware of it and get some process in place so we can measure it. I mean, we had, you know, of course this is before I was ever there, before Vince, but you know, for many years the state of West Virginia accumulated a large unfunded liability in the pension system. And the way that happened, it happened the same way all across the United States. It all goes back to the early 70s. There was a period of time when there was a lot of inflation and the economy wasn't doing well. And governments all over the country were not experiencing any revenue increases, but public employees were demanding pay raises because they were under pressure. The politicians didn't want to give pay raises because they couldn't afford it, but they didn't want to alienate that base either. So they thought the easy way out was to promise that they'd give them pension benefits later. And the thing of it is, they didn't realize they had to set aside money to pay for that. So what happened was states all over the United States, not just West Virginia, but all the 50 states, started basically paying out these benefits, making these commitments, not funding it, until Wall Street started telling states, you guys need to set money aside because we're going to start putting this on your balance sheet.
Downgrading.
That's right. Well, it's on our balance sheet, but we have to report unfunded liabilities on our balance sheet. You know, unfunded liabilities and pensions are about $4.5 billion. So we have to report that.
With a B?
Billion, yeah. It's getting smaller. I mean, as the stock market goes up, but if that goes back down, it can open up again. Because I was there in 2008, and we had been closing, and all of a sudden the gap opened up like that when the market crashed. And so, and we have, and what Wall Street requires, in order to stay on course, we have to set aside a certain amount of money every single year. In addition to, you know, we have to fund what we accrue in that period. Plus, we have to set aside additional money to pay down the unfunded liability. Now, the thing that makes it more interesting is that we get to invest the money and we get to assume the liability at 7.25%. That's the discount rate. But 7.25% is generous. And if you're a private employer, you have to use a much lower discount rate when you're setting up your pension plan. States are given like a special cutout. But even when Wall Street looks at our balance sheet, they readjust that. They adjust that down to 5.5%. And that makes it really bigger. And it's interestingly, it's not just, oh, by the way, we're in that particular area of debt because we've been working on it here for years and we've been diligent. We've closed it a bit, and we're not the worst case. We're not in the worst position in the country. We're kind of probably in the middle. The worst state in the union for pension debt is probably Illinois or California. I mean, Illinois is like 15% funded, maybe 5% funded, and they're huge. And California's got $500 billion of unfunded liability. I mean, it's staggering. We're only like $5 billion. It's small potatoes. But the federal government, incidentally, everybody knows how much the federal government owes, $37 trillion, but that's not all of their debt, because they also have to report on their balance sheet, according to the generally accepted accounting principles, the unfunded liability in their military and civilian retirement plans, and that's $7 trillion. So that's on top of the 37, and of course none of that includes the 100 to 200 trillion in unfunded liabilities that are off the balance sheet for programs that are not considered obligations, but which they're, you know, kind of still look for anyway.
That also brings up the question when we get into Senator Deeds and the initiation of the budget this year, is how's that going to be handled?
Yeah, they start the budget this year.
Yeah.
So they start the budget this year. So anyway, I just think that if the country goes through an economic downturn, we really need to have a handle on what we owe as a state, and really we need to just kind of get all the members on the page where they understand that those debts exist and they could come back to us, and under what circumstances they could, so that we can start building a plan to take care of that before it bites us.
Yes.
So.
All right. Very good. Let me, I feel kind of trapped here. Let me get right here. I normally move a little bit whenever I speak, and I'm used to standing up, but I thank you all for having us. Really, I think this is the best thing that we can do as legislatures and as a community that's come together and talk about these kind of issues prior to session and during session. So now there's going to be a lot of issues that will pop up and get the headlines. If you have any questions during session, this is critically important. Please reach out and contact us. Call me. I may be in meetings and stuff, but but I'll make sure I call you back, you know, one way or the other, because I want you all to get the best information possible. And sometimes whenever session is going on, it moves at light speed, and there's a lot of disinformation there. So we want to make sure that you all get the best information possible. One thing that we have been working on, and it has been behind the scenes a lot already, we've been working on bicameral. It's both the House and the Senate, certain members in the Senate, been working on a bicameral economic development authority, which is a pro-jobs caucus. And so there was a plan to allow the House to go ahead early on, and they've already done a press conference on it by design, of say these are our initiatives. And the reason behind that is to give the governor some time before his State of the State address to kind of look at that kind of information, and he can work off of that already before he comes out with his State of the State address. We're going to allow the House by design, and really because the House has really got some really strong leadership over there, and have been there long term. Roger Henshaw's been there now for a number of years as Speaker of the House, so he knows we have continuity there as far as where the economic development needs fleshed out. So you'll hear a lot about that, especially next week. You'll probably hear about it in this governor's State of the State address, and because I believe the governor's working hand in hand right now with that. It'll emphasize, like Ray mentioned, it'll emphasize a lot of small business, because the majority of businesses in West Virginia are small business, and we want to make sure that we get the government out of the way. Because oftentimes, we in times past, especially, we felt like we were helping in certain aspects by legislating certain things, and ultimately it just hadn't worked out that way. So you'll see there's an active push to get big government out of the way, and that should help small businesses, because really, like I say, 90% of our businesses are small businesses in West Virginia. And so there'll be big initiatives for that. Also, how to develop the education background. Of course, you'll hear about that a lot, about how to best develop that. And whenever you talk about education, you always think automatically about our elementary and secondary schools and public education. One thing we have to be mindful of is be able to recruit and retain professionals in special areas. Sometimes there's a lot of discussion, of course. Ray mentioned some of the healthcare issues that we have here. It's not that I truly believe Vandalia has tried to recruit OBGYNs in this area. It's hard to be competitive whenever you have Roanoke this close, and Roanoke is paying, Carillion's paying a lot of money for those same professionals. And doctors and nurses, healthcare professionals, they travel for money. They truly do. And so there's some challenges there. The good thing is we do have a school here in our backyard, and they're actively trying to work with that continue to have effective health care in our area. Some of the other issues that I want to talk about, besides the economic development and the education that will, parameters that will be developed through that economic development, is some of the opportunities in the Valley. Now, of course, about, because it was all in the news earlier at the end of the session of 25, was House Bill 2014, which is that microgrid, the data center bill, and that's a big economic gain. That was a good bill. If we had, now, it's not immediate. Everybody always wants, thinks that you pass legislation by the 1st of July that year, everything happens. it does work, it begins to work, but I mean, especially whenever you're dealing with, these Fortune 100 companies, that own and develop these data centers, there's been a lot of negotiations, and really, and sometimes, oftentimes, those of us that are engaged in those negotiations, we're in non-disclosure agreements. We can't really talk about the fine details or anything like that. You will, and you will, but I can tell you this: you will see some growth, some substantial growth in the Greenbrier Valley as far as economic growth, and we'll probably have some announcements about that here in the next, probably sometime during session. It's because we're finalizing that now as far as getting the contract signed. So where that normally looks at, in case you're wondering, and I'm sure you'll have questions about data centers and how they generate their power, because they're heavy initially. On water, but they work like a radiator. Okay, in your car, as soon as they get that initial amount of water, and they're more efficient now. They're more cooling. They don't take as much water as what they did initially now, but it works just like a radiator. They get that water and they contain it, and in there, and they use it for cooling. But it's self-contained, just like your radiator is in your car. And so that's one aspect, and then the energy that it takes to move all that, because we all use, with the growth of phones and information you can get off your phones. If you do a search on anything, okay, it goes to a data center. You can ask, what's the best meal at Cook's restaurant, and it goes to a data center. Okay, that's just the way of the world that we live in. The data centers, they take a lot of power, a lot of electricity, but we also, part of that bill was the microgrid. Okay, microgrids, they generate your own power there. So you'll see these data centers, especially initially, developed near gas lines, which if you know where the gas lines are. We just had the Mountaineer pipeline run through, so kind of give you an idea of some different places that there may be substantial. I'm talking about just one, okay? Just one facility. One facility is a $30 billion investment, okay, with a B, okay, in area. So you take, if it's a $30 billion investment, the county that it sets in will automatically, and these are low figures, but if it's a $30 billion investment, if it generates this much information, and it's all taxable, okay, that information, as soon as it's bought from that company, is taxable, and it'll generate at least anywhere between $128, $175 million a year in taxes for that county. Okay, so that's a lot of money. Okay, whenever you look at where our budgets are right now in the counties, and I want to kind of flesh that out a little bit, because I want you to know that's something that we've worked on together, hand in hand with the House, in 25, and it will develop more and more here in the next few months, and you'll see some really good success there.
When you're talking about taxes, though, are you talking about increasing taxes for the residents?
No, absolutely. That's a great question, but no, this is ultimately it's a sales tax. Okay, it's a simple. Yeah, ultimately, and so ultimately it will not affect your property taxes.
So will you be giving tax breaks to these large companies who bring these data centers in?
No, that's a good question too.
So the counties will not be doing that?
The counties won't be able to, the way the legislation is written.
I'm talking about like the property that they sell.
Right, no, what my experience, and this has already been sorted out, here over the past few months. These companies, they come and they buy everything, okay? So, I mean, I'm not telling you to go buy a property all around the gas lines, okay? But honestly, that property is very, very valuable to them. And so they come in and you always worry, we deal with a lot of economic development issues all the time, and people think, well, we don't have any water, septic there, we don't have any roadways there. These companies are Fortune 100 companies. I mean, they have a lot of capital, and they know that they can make, money on the backside of this. Because Loudoun County, Virginia is the richest county in the country. And Loudoun County, Virginia, it is because they have data centers there. Okay, and so to answer your question, Alan, this will be an investment here. They come knowing that they have to build the infrastructure. Okay. And they invest. The state doesn't pay for it, the county doesn't pay for it. We'll help get right of ways and stuff like that, as far as, but as far as the dollar amount, we're not gonna spend taxpayer money on that, because they have deep enough pockets, they can come and.
I would ask if they were gonna give them tax breaks.
No.
Like, if they put this data center, we'll say Mason County.
Right.
Is Mason County gonna suffer, in this mile-long data center that you build, or are they gonna charge them the same exact thing?
When there were some numbers that
Yeah.
a single data center could pay $160 million a year in property taxes. The fight we got into at the legislature was, we wanted that, that's a lot of money for a county.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount for a county. So in order to get broad support for it, we created a formula where that money is gonna be shared to some extent around the state, but the fight was with counties that wanted more if they didn't have one versus the counties that wanted to keep it all if they did.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
but we said, really the fair way to do it is likely, because the impact is on everybody, is probably to allocate it in some way to divide the revenue. So you're talking about a full-scale data center that, if it runs at where they were talking about, if it uses a gigawatt of power, you're talking about a project that's multiple billions of dollars, and the property tax impacted that in the hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
For the county.
Now, where it might, the only way it would affect your own property taxes possibly is if it results in a revaluation of your property. If your property values go up for some reason, then that could have an effect. But if that's the case and counties are in surplus, we can always go back and revisit that too.
Right.
So
Sure, yeah,
First, you said that they sell. What are they selling? How are they producing income after they build it?
Oh, no, that's a good question, because, okay, say, you pull out your phone and you ask for directions to grow, anything, whether it's on Google Maps or whatever, any kind of information that you use, any kind of computer type searches. It goes, through the World Wide Web. It goes to this data center and it processes. They are just ultimately, an oversimplification is they're ultimately huge computers.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
How are you getting your income?
Because-
You're
well,
paying
that's
for
a-
the first money, but are you paying for each data search? The company paying for, say,
They
each
did.
search that comes through there?
Retention
County-
of the information is what they're
Retention,
paying for. They're
yeah.
paying for the retention of the
But
information.
I know it goes to the company, but how is the sales coming back to the county?
yeah, I will say, okay, a lot of these data centers are being built out to accommodate artificial intelligence. And a lot of these companies are building bots that what they'll do is, like, say, if I might create a company that does customer service and then license that software to a company that wants to replace their employees with the data center. That's basically, they're into the software license. The model in the software business anymore is not to sell your product, but to license it for a continuing revenue stream. Now, that said, apart from the fact there are reasons to be skeptical about how much revenue AI will in fact generate long term. People have asked Sam Altman, how is it that you know, he's got over $1 trillion in build out commitments, and his revenues are billions of dollars. He said that the numbers don't seem to pan out. He argues that he's got more revenue than that, but nobody really knows. And I would argue that even though it'd be great if we get a data center, we have to have the infrastructure and the rules in place to see that we can get one if the opportunity's there. I do wonder if the industry in the long run will in fact produce that kind of investment, because that it seems a bit optimistic.
It seems really overvalued at this point.
It does, yeah, it does.
But the property taxes will be consistent. I mean,
Yeah, if
as
they
far
go,
as, the property taxes will be consistent with the county.
So they're not going to be employing a bunch of people, right?
There's about 2,500 construction jobs to start out with.
Yeah, but I mean, as they get up and running.
About 300. About 300, but they are six-figure jobs.
How many of those are gonna be qualified West Virginians?
Well, that comes down to what we were talking about education just a minute ago.
So,
And some of it, now what is going to be like, let's use Buffalo, West Virginia. Let's use Toyota. They've been there a while, okay? Toyota's been there a while, and they are a West Virginia company. What they have done, and what these companies here will do, they work with the local education, the county education, whether it's the local board of educations in the secondary schools, and also with the technical schools like New River, and they develop their work staff that way. You know, so we already have a model. We know what it works like, and it works very well for Toyota, and that's what these companies will have.
They're a large employer, right?
At Toyota, I can't remember how many they have at Toyota. That's
It's hundreds, I mean, if not.
yeah.
well,
It's,
there's quite a few there.
Naysayers and the people that are opposing these, in the counties, the consistent thing I see from them is that they say that these bills are being constructed so that the counties where they're located and drawn on the water and everything will get a small bit of the taxes. And the bills are constructed so that the recipient of most of the taxes is the state of West Virginia.
no, there's actually a formula that's in that bill and I can't remember the percentages right here off the top of my head, but that was a big contention because ultimately there's a couple of schools of thought. One, we don't want we don't want the counties to starve. Ultimately, this is local economic development. Okay, it's local economic development. But we also don't want to run into a situation like Doddridge County. Doddridge County, by the way, is the richest county in the state at the top because of the severance taxes, and they cannot spend all their money. Okay, they literally cannot spend all their money that they make in Doddridge County. Okay. And so what the formula that was come up with and signed on to, what it does that the bulk of it goes to the local market, and then if it gets a certain percentage is scattered through the other counties, but it's in statute. It doesn't change, and so ultimately the way that whenever we were debating it and signing off on it, ultimately we wanted to make sure that the local counties got the bulk of the money, but we also didn't want Raleigh County to starve if Greenbrier County got a data center. Okay, and because especially initially, because these things are not. They don't have them in their hip pockets. They take about 3 years to develop. I mean, really, to completely. So we also don't want, any of the other counties that are not early on into this process to starve out while they see that their neighbors are making all this money. So it's a really fair formula. I mean, and it's not overly complex. Some of the numbers changed. Some of it's over some of the debates. But what it does, it gives the bulk of it to local county, and then it spreads it around to all 55 counties.
Besides economics, are there going to be any regulations for pollution?
Yeah, and they're very, that's an excellent question because, of course, all you have to do is drive through the coal fields and see how, how that has developed over years. I mean, over hundreds of years. But, so the good thing about it is that they are regulated probably more than you can imagine. The water that they do take in and everything around them is highly regulated.
But there's also I think it's sulfur dioxide from the gas.
That in particular, I can't speak to, but I know that there's a lot of federal regulations still already, and of course the state always enforces those federal regulations. So I mean, I think it's worth, it's worth educating ourselves, all of ourselves, about what the quality controls. But as far as a business, it's clean as far as, it's a big business, but it's self-contained. Okay, again, it's like a radiator in the car. So and I didn't want to, I wanted to let you know that's being developed and will continue to be developed over throughout especially the southern part of the state. Really, the southeast part of the state is going to benefit a lot from these areas, from these initiatives. Some other things. Let's talk about some more initiatives. Of course, there will be a lot of. We by design, every year it switches from the House initiating the budget to the Senate, and this year's the Senate will initiate the budget, and then it's like any other bill. It's debated out. It'll go to the House and be debated out there, and then it'll come up with some sort of compromise between the two. We normally finish the budget probably about 2 to 3 weeks before the end of session, and that's and that's pretty consistent. It's been pretty consistent over the past few years. So I don't know if you have any particular questions about that one way or the other, but I think, of course, we're still having surpluses as far as money. Actually, last month we were $128 million to the good. Last month, we still, even with the tax cuts that are in place, and keep in mind, personal income tax has automatic triggers as long as we develop the economy. As long as the economy continues to grow, personal income tax will automatically go back. It will be rolled back. That's so we don't have to legislate that again. And it's really a good plan, that keeps us from wanting to take too much at once, because you can cut into your surpluses so much that ultimately Kansas did this. They went and they cut out about all their personal income tax right from the very get-go. And what happened is they were starving themselves to death and had no benefits whatsoever. And even with cutting all the fat and everything else, well, what they ended up doing about 4 to 6 years later, they had to raise taxes. Okay, they had to increase there. So that is one thing, and we have a lot of firewalls in there, so we don't have to do that. I think you will see some incentives, like no tax on tips and no tax on overtime here in this state. I think it'll pass, and the cost on that's about $10 million a year, roughly. So that I think that will pass. Because I know the House is really wanting it. I know there's several of us in the Senate that are wanting that, and it parallels the federal guidelines as far as that goes. Other things, we are looking at those people that have invested their whole lives here in West Virginia, are retirees, trying to make their lives more comfortable, because they are on a fixed income, more often than not, and we don't, I think we have to be careful about taxing them, and so there's a lot of discussion about that right now. I don't know ultimately where that will be.
Got another issue I noticed in the Gazette last week. They were talking about the poor drinking water in a lot of the areas of coal fields down around Gary, around
You're
McDowell. Yeah. So these people have been wanting to get improvements to their drinking water for probably 20 years.
Sure.
Where are they going to be able to look to for help this year?
And that's an excellent question. Let me tell you how important, really, and how really all good government starts at the local level, at the lowest local level. Okay, your public service districts are very, very, extremely important to your lifestyle. You know, if you want clean water when you turn the tap on, if you want to have a good septic system, you better have a good PSD, public service district. Over the years, as the coal fields dried up and people moved out, those public service districts suffered. You know, they didn't have the same level of professional people that the engineers and stuff that were actively had been working on those PSDs for a long time. They either passed away or they moved out of the area. So there was a vacuum there, and ultimately now they're really suffering for it because they didn't have any long-term plans. Water and septic takes plans. I mean, long-term plans. Not you can say you want clean water. For instance, and which is something that is developed. Is new water lines and stuff going down through Fairley, septic, because the demand is high. And they need that in Fairley going between Fairley and Rossford, and Fairley and Rossford and Lewisburg. It takes plans, it takes time, because that money is available, but really that money comes in West Virginia, is through the Water Development Authority. That Water Development Authority this year, right now, as we stand today, is a $31 million surplus. And I do know that those projects, like in the coal fields, are at the top of the list. The Water Development Authority brings the plans to ultimately to the executive. What the legislature does, we allocate money to the water, in the budget, to them, and then ultimately they produce to the PSDs, to the public service districts, that present cases to the Water Development Authority. Then they present those plans to the governor signs off. I think because of the media attention and really in the desperate need there, I think they'll develop. Let me give you, for instance, what happened here, okay? And how it is really important that you stay in tune with your local, and by the way, PSDs have three individuals that are from the community that work there, and they're appointed by the county commission, okay? So you have a vote through the county commission, okay? The county commission appoints them, and there's three of them in each PSD. We have two in this county. A number of years ago, 15 years ago, how things can vaporize when sometimes with water projects. Meadowbrook subdivision, which is out Bago Road, okay, if you know where that's at, and out Bago Road, was tied in with the same project with Eccles Acres and Longview Estates, okay? Ultimately, what happened, and it really wasn't, I did the research, this has been 15 years ago, ballpark, that's where it started. And they were all, they were supposed to have water and septic, especially septic. Meadowbrook and needed that then, and you know, it serves a number of people out through there, going out Vago Road. And they ended up, the money was shifted to some other project, and they didn't get it. It was around 2012. They were just cut out. About 2 years ago, I had.
Was that at the Water Development Authority level or County Commission level?
No, it was a public service district that shifted. They have a lot of authority. Okay, your public service district, and that's how come it is really, is stay engaged with your county commissioners and your public service district to know what they're doing. Okay, they have an office right down there. You know, it's in the old Kentucky Fried Chicken building in Fairfield. Okay.
So it's the local PSD.
Yeah, it's local PSD, and so, but that was back. That's been now about 10, 13 years ago. I found out about it. Roger Altizer and several of those people out there. Roger Altizer, and he's just like us. He's just a regular citizen, but he'd been taking care of their pump station and stuff and the water quality. You have to have good water quality, whether you have any state funding or not. And he'd been doing that for years. So I went back and Roger came to me and said, "Hey, we got cut out of this a long time ago. Now our pumps are failing, and we cannot do anything." And this serves a number of homes. I mean, think about it going out Vago Road all the way to Meadowbrook, which is in behind Boggs Road, in behind Frankfurt. It goes out that far. Our system's failing, we can't do anything. So what I did, I put a lot of political pressure on through the Water Development Authority. I found that the money was there through the Water Development Authority, and now they're in the final stages of getting all that done. They've already done all the preliminary stuff and everything, but it's more expensive now. It'd been a lot cheaper to do it 13 years ago in one project, and now it's a lot more expensive. But we got it funded.
So who's responsible for oversight of the local PSD?
The county commissioners. The county commissioners appoint them. So I mean, yeah,
They're also
Yeah.
regulated by PSC.
yeah. PSC ultimately is the state organization, but who appoints the engineers? I call them engineers, but who ultimately appoints the three people that make those decisions in the PSD is the county commission. So be mindful, the best government and the most effective government is always at the lowest level. That's why it is important that you stay involved with the political machines at the local level, because if you worry about water and septic, that's your county commissions and that's your PSD districts, and that's not only here, that's across the state. So it's always important to stay engaged. And now I'm going to kind of wrap up here and let you all ask some more questions, but please, and that's why it's so important to reach out to us and let us know what kind of issues you're facing, what kind of difficulties you're facing, because as I didn't know about the Meadowbrook issue until Roger Altizer brought it to my attention, and now it's fixed. That's really important. Any questions for me or Brad?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You know if Greenbrier County's going to improve their utilities, water, and the sewer anytime soon? Because I know they want to build a big business here wants to build a big builder, and my son got all to do the building, and he can't get the permit because he said the utilities won't handle it.
Yeah, and that's the.
What was the question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We can't hear you.
Can you repeat it?
I'm
so she
sorry.
can hear?
When is the county going to increase the utilities for the water and the sewer? Because his business wants to build a big building, and the local county wouldn't approve it or give him the permit because he said he couldn't handle the water and sewage that the business would require.
Yeah, and that's an excellent question, because you do run into that. because, you know, go back to what I was initially talking about, small business, okay? And even though they may be like an Amazon, okay, building like off Airport Road in Raleigh County, they still have to have water, they still have to have septic. And some of those big businesses can, and you know, like these data centers, they can come and fix that whenever they move in. However, most businesses, most small businesses cannot afford that. Okay, I mean, they can't afford to put in a roadway or put in a water line. That is how come it is really important. You cannot allow the PSDs to get behind, and there are some deserts of water and septic in our county.
Well, they said the water supply will not support it.
It's line size. I mean, because that's what's happening in Fairleigh right now. They're out of their capacity. Their lines will not. Their lines are too small.
Well, it's not the quantity of
Right.
water, it's
the actual
Service
lines.
lines.
Yeah, the service lines. Those service lines.
Got you.
You know, say because ultimately, like in Fairleigh, I think the last time that they were touched was in the '80s. So I mean, now the water capacity has to be a lot bigger. It's only got like a 4-inch line, and it needs a 10-inch line. If that makes sense, it's just a volume. Yeah.
The volume. Okay, I can understand that.
And that does come back to the point of, how many times do we go to school board meetings or county commission meetings?
Yeah.
Because that's where these decisions are made. That decision was made
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Right. Right.
And it hasn't been remedied since.
Right, and that's why I think anytime I get an opportunity to have the floor, I really think it is super important that you stay engaged in your Board of Education meetings and in your county commission meetings, because they truly touch you day in and day out, okay? I mean, you know, because a lot of times the big projects that we do absolutely will touch you, but it's, you know, it may be a little bit farther down the line and maybe not as direct. What the Board of Educations and what the county commissioners do, and it touches you. I mean, it really does. And it's the easiest thing to fix too with your engagement. So I would truly encourage you to go to all those things. Did you have a
Yeah,
question?
I do, but it's a much more general question, but since both of you are here, I will just throw it out to you. Do either of you have concerns about corruption in the state legislature or beyond, such as what's going on in many other states and, you know, even in adjacent ones that were, there's a lot of exposure. So, is anybody?
That's a good question, and I really appreciate that. One thing that we have to hone in on, just so you know, I'm vice chair of health committee, which health touches a lot of different things. Okay, it's not just your blood pressure. Okay, but it touches a lot of different things. So it's over human services. Okay, that's what the issue is in Minnesota. All that craziness that's going on, the Leering centers in Minnesota and stuff. Okay.
Watch that program.
Oh yeah, I know. Now, but one thing that we have and really try to hone in on a couple different things. One, there's an oversight committee that is over education. There's one that's over education, but there's also one, LACRA is the acronym for it, and I'm one and that's over human services. Okay, because human services and our concern a few years ago. And I don't know if you all remember this. A few years ago, Human Services, or is called Health and Human Resources. Then we broke it down into 3 pieces because it was so big. I mean, and had so much bureaucracy in it that nobody knew what. There's duplication in efforts and a lot of wasted money. I mean, really a lot of wasted money. And so we broke it down into 3 entities. One that deals with our hospitals or state hospitals like Weston, or mental health hospitals and stuff like that. And then one that deals with, the health departments and different things along those lines. And then ultimately Human Services deals with our child welfare and benefits, okay? One thing that LOCRA looks at, and you can watch them, they're public, they're very contentious at times because we grill Human Services over, are they providing good services and how they're paying for them, okay? One thing, and you can go back just as recent as December, during the LOCRA meeting, there's a, and because Human Services knew we were about to really, they knew that we were quizzing them about it. They had been paying mileage to a subcontractor that they hired called Essential. Okay, it's a private company, but they were paying mileage for transport of children and families, for different reasons. A lot of times foster kids, would have to have transportation. Well, some of the mileage Essential was charging them was thousands of miles per week. Okay, ultimately, you'd have had to literally drive from here to California, in that amount of time. Okay, so we really hone in on that and really hold them accountable with that because we do not. And that's just one example of some things that we look at. But and education does the same thing to try to get the bureaucracy out of it. I think all of us in both chambers want small government, but we want to make sure with that small government that you have quality services and your tax dollars aren't getting stolen ultimately. In both of those things. So that's a concern, especially because I think you will see post-COVID, okay? COVID was and we hadn't really, none of us at our age had ever lived through any of that, and so everybody was kind of learning as you go. Well, unfortunately, with the money that was pumped into that, and really with my background, doesn't really surprised me too much. My law enforcement background. As soon as you start pumping a lot of money into something like that, it absolutely increases the amount of fraud that you have too. Because people, you wish that everybody would follow the golden rule, but unfortunately, there's people that would rather steal money than make money. So and now we're at the stage to where we're trying to make sure that everything's corrected. Fortunately, all that COVID money, and it is a good thing, that COVID money is gone, and we're honing back in on the day in and day out expenses.
Vince,
Yes, ma'am.
what happened to the company that was charging all these thousands of miles?
Well, we've had them, Human Services suspend their contract, and they're going through a full audit right now. And if we find out, and which Lori Bragg is the sub-commissioner under Human Services that's in charge of that, Lori will be testifying again here. Our LOCRA meeting is Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. They suspended the contract. They're auditing everything that they've done, and if they find that they overcharged them, then they'll get their money back. That'll be the minimum. They'll at least get the money back, and potentially people could be criminally charged depending on how nefarious it is, really.
So let me just ask, in conclusion, you would both say that we as taxpayers and citizens don't have to be concerned about fraud and corruption.
I think you need to
Not
be.
what he said.
No, I think you need to be vigilant. Okay, be vigilant. I think because no, I'm not. You'll never hear me say that because I tell you again. I think it's always good to be in the know. it's good to ask hard questions, okay? It's fine to ask hard questions because sometimes, if nobody's watching, I promise you, if nobody's watching, somebody's gonna do something wrong. I mean, it's just the way our human nature is. So be engaged, ask hard questions, and then also know what your Senate, your House is doing, and how and watch these locker committee meetings and watch the what's the acronym for the education side of it? It's LOCIA, yeah. Watch the oversight committees because they have a big stick, and I mean we do. I mean really, we really do that. And then if it's egregious enough, it goes, which is a confidential thing. I'm actually on this. It's a Commission of Special Investigations. Okay, and it has to be confidential because it's truly a criminal investigation. And then it goes to. We have a team of investigators that's all they do, literally.
Is there an oversight committee or for the Economic Development Authority? I noticed just recently, two that have gotten huge forgivable loans have declared bankruptcy. And one of them was just totally corrupt and unvetted.
Yeah.
That they gave him $60 million. Now we're just out that money.
Yeah, that's about the $5 billion. Part of that 12 billion I was talking about.
Yeah.
What happens is you loan the money and they turn out not to be good for you.
That's a really good question, and I can't give you all the fine details. Let me just tell you this: the Commission on Special Investigations is looking at that. Okay, because I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's still a pending investigation, so I don't know ultimately where that will. I think there's really good potential for criminal prosecution on some of that stuff.
How long does that investigation
Normally take, normally with the team of investigators we have, and they are top tier. I mean, they are really, and they're not associated with any other law enforcement agency in the state or in the country. They are our team of investigators. That normally takes, for something that complicated, okay, and that big of a dollar amount, I would say, right around a year. So, I mean, it's not overnight. You know that something has happened. I mean, it's obvious that something has happened, but now you have to prove it, and you have to be able to prove it criminally beyond a shadow of a doubt.
reasonable doubt?
Yeah, but I think we'll get there. It's without giving any more information.
With respect to your question about health and human resources, between the legislature, of course, and all these private contractors is the DHHR itself, and there have been long-running problems with them, spending money the way they want to, regardless of how the legislature allocates it. So they've had we had a fight with them during session. Our chairman, for a period of time, took away a big chunk of their money simply because they hadn't reported back, and we've had discussions about even putting our own people, the legislative employees, on site there on a permanent basis just to look over their shoulders and make sure they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Because there's simply they act as if they're the legislature in many respects.
Yeah, and something especially now in the issue that you run into like human services is now you got a whole new team. Okay, you really do, because all those are appointed positions by the governor. So where you really have to look at really in these huge agencies is not even who gets blamed for it all the time are the people at the very top. Okay. But oftentimes where the difficulty is, and it's not even at the local level, it's the bureaucracy in between. Okay, it's the middle management, and what is key is having good supervisors that can be whistleblowers if they need that. Okay, and so and we shut the money off. And they understand that, okay? They most definitely understand that.
That's a good point to intercede there.
Yeah, that's right.
Bless you.
Well, we appreciate the time you've given, and we know that what we have to do is to keep looking at these things. And you know, as we go, look at our ages. We don't have children in school. We may have grandchildren in school. So this is a good time to ask you to be on your children. Go to school board meetings. We need to go to county commission meetings. The problem with that is we're old and they're at night. So we do need to set up maybe a system.
It's usually Tuesday mornings, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
but
I'll
they-
watch it from Charleston.
I tell you,
Those school boards-
I'll give Frank Tuckwiller credit. He would show up and speak at county, Board of Education meetings
Yes.
on a regular basis. And be, just, you know, you may have a topic that you want to talk about. You have a right to sign up and you have a right to talk with those things and air your concerns. So please take advantage of that.
What Frank would tell you was they wouldn't give you any response.
They can't, and there's some funny guidelines, so be aware of that. And the county commission is similar. They'll listen, but they won't engage. They can't have a two-way conversation. Okay.
Right.
Now they do afterwards. By the way, I mean normally, and by the way, you engage your county commissioners, Richie Holiday, Lowell Rose, and you know Woody Hanna's kind of filling in here for the next year or so. You know, engage those guys and talk to them, tell them what you're thinking. They want to hear what you know. They don't want to live in a bubble, and also talk to your Board of Education members. I mean, you know. Every district has a representation there, and talk, figure out who that is and talk to them. And it does makes more of an impact on what you ever know. It really does.
Thank you.
Really quick, just a general question. You mentioned calling if we have questions. Is email or calling the best method, or is there a better?
Calling. Let me tell you, because we get and what I will do, and I think I was talking to Bob about it earlier. Ultimately, I'll talk to you. I'd rather talk to you to start out with and kind of figure out what your issue is, and then if there's any follow up, then I need an email that I flag is more important, because we get inundated with emails, okay? And if you just email something without a phone call, especially because I have a full-time staff, and I think you all split secretaries.
Yeah, we
don't you?
don't. You guys have
Yeah.
more staff than we do.
Yeah, I have a full-time, I have actually 2 full-time secretaries, and I want you to talk to me. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can show up in person, that's fantastic, by the way. It's a good experience, but at least make a phone call, and then if there's any, I'll ask you to send me an email that has the particulars so we can act on it. Okay. So yeah, both. So and my numbers, the number that's on my webpage, on the West Virginia Legislature.gov page, is my cell phone. I mean, you'll get me day or night, okay?
Yeah, texting my cell phone is probably the best.
Yeah.
Still,
Texting my cell, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all for that.
Thank you.
I've written on our agenda comments about Republican scholarships. Scholarships have just recently been awarded for the first time by the new committee that we've set up. But if we can get an update on that, how much was given to who, and do we have the criteria, or is it just gonna be relatives?
They have to have Greenbrier County connections, and that's really it. They don't have to be Republicans or anything else. And just make the application. One of them is in animal husbandry and probably going to become a veterinarian, sophomore at WVU. She got $1,500. One is a freshman at Wesleyan in nursing school, and she recently got a card from her saying she had a 4.0 the first semester. We've gotten replies from all of them that were very appreciative. The third one was $2,000 to someone who's working in the. Is she working in the?
She works at the Capitol. Yeah. So her name is Julie Shook. She is our general counsel's wife. She is working on her master's. This is her. She's receiving 4.0 like her whole master's program so far. Super smart and plans on staying in West Virginia. Her in-laws are actually from Greenbrier County. They do farming out in the western end of the county. Sweet people, and she is an amazing woman, and she works very hard.
She got $2,000 that will help her complete her schooling, and she wants to become a CPA and continue to work in West Virginia government.
Yep.
We do have close to $15,000 available. If you know students that are in need of scholarship money, or just need to have a little spending money, that was the main purpose of the donors of the scholarship, was they realized how tough it was when you didn't have money for a date or get a hamburger. They wanted to ease the burden on some students. So if you know some students like that, have them apply to us.
And we would like to keep this ongoing. So if you guys have grandchildren, children, anybody that is, in college, have them send us an application. A bio.
Somebody left this outside there. I guess the waitress found it. It looks like a button off a woman's coat or
See
something.
that? It's a scarf ring.
Well,
It's a scarf ring.
Scarf ring, of course.
whatever.
Yeah, it's a scarf ring.
Who would
I really should know.
Good. Okay. And,
Dues can be paid at any time now. For $30 a couple or $20 per person. And a number of people already paid their dues. If you haven't paid your dues, you can mail them to Post Office Box 1300, just to GCRC.
very good. Thank you. Remarks of officers. Anyone have some burning remarks? Yes.
I do. So I am the president of the Greenbrier Valley Federation of Republican Women, and I would highly encourage, if you would like to be a voice for females here in Greenbrier County, that conservative movement, we would encourage you to come to one of our meetings or join our federation. And we are having a day on February the 16th at the Capitol, to let your voices be heard.
Should they contact you?
No?
Should?
Actually, the best person to contact is Faye here. She will answer emails and phone calls, which I don't.
I'll help you.
Tell them when we're gonna meet. Tell them when we're gonna meet.
We're going to meet an hour before the club meeting on the first Thursday of every month. We will meet here at 5:30. If you would like to fellowship and break bread with us, be here at 5.
Very good. Doug, any further comments? Okay. Got a text from Trey Holland. He was unable to be here tonight. He is, use a technical term, under the weather.
He's also a new daddy. A beautiful, beautiful new baby.
we do have. And if you have any contribution to the baby's toy fund or supplies, that would be good if you want to bring it next meeting.
Speaking of this, I am going to bring a card next meeting to send to Julia and George, who just welcomed a brand new baby girl to the first family of West Virginia. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's seen that or not. Oh, I'm sorry. The Morrisseys just had their first grandchild last week. It was a little girl. Beautiful little baby. So I will be bringing a card for them to sign and send off to them. So if you want to include any little special notes or anything, please let me know.
Just keep an eye on what's happening in Britain and Iran. Late breaking developments every week, so just pay attention. And we are now ready for adjournment.
Roseanne, are you finished?
I'm sorry, we have an update on the chemtrails and clean air issues.
All right,
Thank you
many
for
of you
reminding.
may not, what shall I say, believe what I believe about what's going on in our skies. Nevertheless, I have founded an organization in cooperation with some other folks here called West Virginians for Clean Air. A number of our members are here tonight, and maybe Suzanne, you can stand up and show them our T-shirt that we have.
They were all supposed to wear one.
Promoting the cause. Very good.
It says stop spraying us, it's kind of.
Yeah, so anyway, I thank you for an opportunity to just say a few words. It isn't going to take very long. I also want to thank our two legislators here, both of whom have been supportive of our effort. To give you an update, after working several months really with Delegate Canterbury and with Senator Jack David Woodrum, and with the cooperation of some other folks and other organizations, we have drafted a bill which is in the hopper now in the Senate, and hopefully with some support and assistance from our local delegates, it will be soon also in the House. The advantage being that if the bill is the same in the two houses, it has a higher likelihood of passage and less complexity in the path to passage. We will be going from time to time, not yet determined, to Charleston to shall we say, knock on doors and maybe heads as well to get this through the process in this coming session. And along those lines, we have a petition which I have passed around before, but if any of you would like to sign a petition to support our effort to clean up our skies and take these toxic chemicals out of our environment, we welcome your signature on the petition. In addition, if anybody here would be highly motivated to support the effort and or join us in the venture trip to Charleston to knock on doors, we would welcome your support. You can reach me anytime. Do not text me, okay? But you can call me or email me at your discretion. And any other of our members, if you happen to know our members. Are there any questions about that?
What is your email?
My email is creekhollow@runbox.com. Any questions? Very good. Well, thank you very much for your attention. I won't hold you up further.
Thanks, Rob.
I agree. I think this is a very important issue to be involved in. It involves all of our health, and it has been occurring over a long, extended period of time. And the longer it goes on, the worse effect it will be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now,
I think people that don't know think, oh, this is clean, fresh, good air. It's not good air quality, even here, much less in Charleston.
well, that's true.
Number one.
Are we ready to adjourn?
Let's stand and sing. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.